All right, today we are going to discuss 6.2, percent proportion. You have a note sheet in front of you. It looks like this, bubble sheet that we'll write in. And then also we'll talk about reteach and the puzzle, okay? A couple things that we need to talk about when we talk about percent proportion. First of all, what does the word percent mean? What does the word percent mean? Anyone? What's it out of? Percent's out of what? 100. 100. So percent is out of 100. So we're looking at a number, or they're giving us a percent. We got to find the percent of a number. Or they give us two numbers and we got to find the percent. So we're going to talk about whole, part, percent. Okay, today it's going to be what we call in proportion. Tomorrow we'll talk about equation. Okay, so in that first bubble, I want you to write percent, proportion. Okay, now here is the percent proportion that we have to talk about. We are going to go A over W equals P over 100. And I got this up here. Now, the biggest part is find, well, what's A, what's P, what's W? All kinds of stuff going on here. So, A is the part. W is the what? Whole. And that's actually not, I want to make sure we, and the P is percent. That's why we can't use P for part. P is percent. Okay? So when you're trying to find this, you can either divide, you can cross multiply with when we talked about proportions last chapter, when you ratio and rates. How this has got to equal that, right? You got two equal fractions, and that's what we're going to do. So, first thing, find the part. Let's go find the percent first. Find the percent. That's kind of easy. How are you going to find the percent of a number? So here's the question. You made 12 of 15 shots. What is the percent? What is the percent there? Anybody have that? So, how would you set that up? What's the part? Yes. 12. What's the whole?
15.
What are we looking for? Percent. And always, this is always going to be given. Is the 100 will always be given. That's always going to be the bottom number on the percent proportion. So now how would you solve this? How could you solve this? Yes. You could do that. You could do 12 divided by 15. Okay, now, there's a couple different ways. We could also go this route, right? 15p equals what? 12 times 100, which is 1200. How do we solve that? How do we solve that? Going back to algebra. Divide what? Both sides by 15. In your calculators, what's 1200 divided by 15? What is it?
80.
What's that? 80. So that is, the answer is there is 80%. Now, the great thing about if you have a part and a whole, we talked this about yesterday. What else can you do? You could just divide what? 12 by 15, and you get what? 12 divided by 15, you get what?
0.8.
0.8, and that is a what? That's a decimal. Remember, what back? How do we get a decimal to a percent? We got to do what? 2 places to the right, which gives us what? 80%. Okay? That is finding the percent. That's easy. That's the easy one. Does everybody have this down?
Yes.
Okay, now we're going to go to the next two. Finding the part and finding the whole. Where in life this is pretty important if you're trying to find the percent of something or find out how many you got to get to this percent. Okay? Some different scenarios there. Okay? I'm going to put this back up here at the top here. There's the right there as well. Let me just put this up here. A over W, remember that's part and that's whole, equals percent over what again? 100. Okay, now, the next one. So this will be in your third bubble. Finding the part. So here's the situation. What number, so here's the question. What number is 36% of 50? Now, when you see this, of means whole of something. What number is the part. So let's put that particular example into our proportion. What needs to happen? Yes. Think about that now. Do we know A? Do we know the is? Do we know the is? No, we don't know the is. What number is? We don't know that. What goes here? Y. No. What number goes there?
Couldn't you just do 50 divided by 0.36?
Not divided by. But what goes here? What? No.
W.
What is the W?
50.
Yes, it's of 50. 50 is the whole. What goes here always?
100.
100. What's going to go here?
36.
It's got to, because that's the percent. Now what do we do?
Simplify.
Okay? Or how else, what else could you do? You could go backwards. Okay, you could say, well, what times 50 is 36, or what times, 50 times what's 100? 2. So then you would go backwards, and that was going to be what? How else did you get that?
36 divided by 2.
What's that?
I took 36 divided by 2.
Okay, to get the back that way. Yes.
I did, 50 times 0.36.
Okay, you can do it that way. Now watch. Variety of different ways. Now I'm going to show you. Cross, cross, right? That's 100A equals 1800. Divide both sides by 100 and you get A equals 18. It's 1-1. Here's the thing about this. What number is 36% of 50? Well, you could also do the one we just talked about. A over 50, 36 over 100. How many times does that happen? That's a times 2. So what times 2 is 36? We said A equals 18. Now, we are strictly doing the proportion method today. Okay? We will introduce the equation method as well. Okay? The equation method, they're very, very similar. It's on how you try to figure these out. But this is just lining up this way. Okay? And then I'll also tell you, if you know these two, you could just take percent, move it to a decimal, times the whole, and you get 18. Okay. Now, finding a whole. Okay, finding a whole. Now, what's whole mean again? Whole is what? Whole's the what? The what it's out of, right? That's your that's the max. Or that's what you say you're 100% at. So, let's look at that one. Finding the whole. So, example, 150% of what number is 24? All right, let's look at that. What do we know so far? We know 3 of the 4 to make this proportion work. What do we know, Reese?
Of would be like the whole number, so I think it would be 150%.
Percents are always over what though? Percents are always over 100. So what's going to go here?
100.
So what's going to go here?
150.
150. Okay? That's okay because we said 150%. It's going to be above 100%. So what's going to go? What else do we know?
We know 24.
Where's that going to go?
Well,
Is that the is or the of? Is that the part or the whole?
the whole, the
Part,
part,
right? Now, let's look at this for a second. Let me ask you. Equivalent fractions, right? Equivalent? So my question to you first is this. Is W gonna be higher than 24 or lower than 24?
Lower.
What's over here? Which one's higher? The top number. Which one's gonna has to happen here?
Cross.
But which one's gonna be the higher number?
Top.
Top. Going back to 5 over 2 equals 10 over 4, right? You can't say, I'm gonna make this for 2.5. No. If the top number is bigger than the small, the top is bigger than the bottom, it's gotta be that way all the way across if they're all equal. So, let's cross again. So what would you do? Take what? W times 150 equals 24 times 100, which is 2400. And now what do? Like the algebra, what do you do on that? Every time. Divide both sides by 150. And you get what? W equals, what's that? 15? 16, okay. I was gonna say. And then we can double check that. Yes,
The way that I found it out is that I know that 150 over 100 is equal to the over 2. And so if 24 divided by 8 is 8, and then I just had to find out 8 times 2, which is 16.
yep, or we could go this way, right? Times 8,
Yeah.
and times 8. Yep. Yep. So what you're doing is you're finding the missing. Yes.
You can also just do 24 divided by 1.5.
Isn't that's actually what you're doing here? If you make that 15 over 1, right? You take out those zeros. Yep. Very good. So I'm trying to get you to think that way in the proportion method, and then we'll get to the equation method. Okay, so ultimately though, it's finding the missing number. Okay, and that's what we're going to spend some time on. It gets a little more difficult when it's not simple whole numbers. You start getting into percents, and the percent of something gets a little more detailed and showing your work a little bit. So, with that, let's look at the reteach on 206. Reteach on 206. It's the back page of the reteach. I have this uploaded already. We're going to go over a couple of these, and then we will, I'll give you your assignment, and we'll do it in class, and you'll be ready to go. Okay, so let's do this. All right, so 48% of what number is 60? Okay, did everybody get this packet? So let's set it up here. What do we know? What part do we know? We know the what?
You know that part.
We know the is, right? So we know the is 60. 60 over what?
W
Equals
48
over,
100.
now what are we gonna do?
Now we're gonna cross.
Cross, right? We get 48W equals, 6,000. And then we divide both sides by what? 48, and we get W is, what's that?
125.
125. Now, does that make sense? 60 out of 125 is 48%. Is what it's telling us. Yes. Makes sense, because 60 out of 120 is 50%. So that makes it make sense. How about number 2? What could you do there? Yes.
You're gonna, so we know the part and the whole, which is 57 over 120, and then it equals P over 100.
Yep. And on this one, what did we say we could do? If we know the part and the whole, we could just do what? This is the one that goes back to what you could do on a test. Find out your grade. You could just do what? Find the decimal. 57 divided by 120 is what? Put in your calculator. 57 divided by 120. What is that?
0.475.
0.475.
57,
Which means what? That's a decimal. How do we do a decimal to a percent?
We move the decimal 2 spots to the right.
To the right. So what's the percent answer there? What's that?
47.5%.
Good. Just like that. All right, 3. 16 is 0.8% of what number? So what are we doing there? 16 is 0.8% of what number? What are we going to do there? What do we know?
0.8 is the percent.
Good. So we know that's going to be over what?
100.
We know that's going to be over 100. What else do we know? 16 is the, and what don't we know?
The whole.
We don't know the whole. So, let's go ahead and cross again, right? What do you get?
6,000.
0.8 W equals
1,600.
1,600.
And divide by 48.
Divide both sides by 0.8. And you get W equals
2,000.
2,000.
I knew it started with a 2. It's not recorded.
All right, let's do 5. Then I'll get you started on your homework. What's 3/4 is 75% of what number? What'd you get there? How you gonna set that up?
Then I would put 75 over 100.
Okay, you guys doing this with me here? 75 over 100. And 3/4
Is the plot.
is the part over what?
W.
W. Probably what you need to do, right? You probably need to change 3/4 to what? A decimal, which is 0.75.
Just be 1.
So, you can look at it that way and say, well, that makes sense, right? as you cross multiply, 75W equals, what's 0.75 times 100? 75. Divide both sides by 75, W equals what? 1. Now, some of you are starting to figure this out. Your mind's already there, meaning your mental math, okay, can get you there. That's great. There's going to be some of these that are going to be a little bit more difficult. Let's do 8 and go. 2.8 is what percent of 2.24?
You know, 2.8 is the part.
Yeah, and what's the whole?
2.24.
So what do we say when we can do this?
We divide 2.8 by 2.24.
What'd you get?
$1.25.
1.25, which is going to be what percent?
Would be 125%.
Does that make sense? 125%.
Yes.
Well, it should, because the top number is more than the lower number, right? The bottom. So 125% on 8. Okay, so that is our percent proportion. When you come back on Thursday, we will talk percent equation. Okay, today I want you to do the puzzle. Okay, the puzzle in 6.2. Now, in your packet, I believe, in your packet, there is the 6.2 puzzle. Okay? So you can show your work there. You can show your work on one of the other box papers. If you didn't use the box paper for 6.1, on that side, you can use it on that side. So it's like this. Label this, though, 6.2, so you can show your work. You mean to be showing your work as you do that puzzle. Okay? All right. Questions? All right. We'll get going on that.